In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Ghost. St. Paul is speaking to the Romans, writing to the Romans, and he was there. Many of them are converted from their pagan ways to the Christian ways of St. Paul. And he says to them, back when you were not Catholic, you did as you pleased. You sinned as you willed. You were a slave to justice. You were free to sin. But now you've put away those sins, and now you're a slave to justice. A slave to God, as it were. Servant of God. Slave to God. And he says, when you were doing all those things, what fruit had you then from those things? But you are now ashamed. You see, we have to. I was talking to a couple this morning. Well, not a couple, a couple kids who were dating, also had previous relationships and things. And they were talking about how the world will tell you to, if you want to really, you got to live with your girlfriend, live with your boyfriend, and you got to, when's the first time you're going to live together and sleep together, that'll be so great, and everything else. And they said, it's really, at the end of the day, it's just a lot of hurt, a lot of emotion, a lot of heartache, a lot of heartbreak, because God is not there. You're trying to lift yourself up and keep yourself up with a constant sense of joy and natural happiness. And it doesn't work. One day it's great, and the next day there's an argument, and the next day there's this, and you expect to be perfectly happy from this one night, and then the next day it blows apart. And then at the end of the day, after all the heartache and breakups and everything else, then you're ashamed. And you go. Just the day before, I was talking to a single mother. She says, I just mad at myself for letting me get myself into that situation. What fruit had you then from those things which you are now ashamed? Sin is like that. Sin is so inviting, and sin is so enticing. Especially as Catholics, we are ashamed of those things afterwards. We are ashamed of those things. So, we are called then, therefore, to a life of virtue, a life of discipline, a life of order, a life of renouncement, a life of chastity. The priest has to practice chastity, even the married couples. With your eyes, with your thoughts, with your actions. Being faithful to your spouse. And the children and the teenagers, being faithful to your God. We'll speak briefly, since we gave a big long sermon on it, but I won't give a big long one here, but speak briefly on that. Therefore, what God has called, what Our Lady wishes more than anything in this century, is the virtue of purity and the virtue of modesty. We, of course, are modest church. We dress accordingly. We wear skirts or dresses and things, because Father might say something, or I don't want to stick out. But which is good, which is really, really great, and you should dress accordingly for God's house. This is where Jesus Christ will come down upon this earth. But if you really want to know what someone is like, what what they do outside of church, you can ask them, well, let me take a look at your Instagram photos and your Facebook page. Father, yeah, my phone's in the car, and the car's overheated, so I can't look at the phone right now, but maybe next week. And then you get on there, delete, because there's often a disconnect between the life of the church and then our outside. We're just totally immersed in the world. And we dress like the world, we act like the world, and we live like the world. But see, this is more like the Romans often that St. Paul's writing to. Slaves of uncleanness and iniquity. Now yield your members as slaves of justice and sanctification. We try. This is a very immoral time, 21st century, a very immoral time. You come down the freeway in San Diego, what do you see with the clubs where the ladies dance? Not the way they're supposed to, and they don't have enough clothes on. And then he's not disciplined nor a man is a man if you can be with so many girls over the weekend. This is not godly. This is not the spirit of Jesus Christ. And unfortunately, we swim in the same water and we breathe the same air as the world, and then all of a sudden we start dressing like the world, and our music is the same as the world, and we watch the same TV, and the same bad movies, and the same everything, and more we become worldly. And we dress immodestly. And we get into vices of impurity and pornography. And we are in a dangerous place as Catholics. St. Thomas Aquinas, who lived in the 1200s, he said that one should dress accordingly to the times and customs that you live, but modestly. You see? And many of you ladies come to church dressed so nice. It's really edifying. And so we're not Amish, of course. We don't have a set uniform or a set length. We have a down to the ankles and the arms covered all the time, and a bonnet on our head, things like that. We're not that. The church does not ask us to do that. But the church does ask us to dress with that virtue of modesty, to cover up the necessary parts of the body, and not to be a source of temptation for the men. You ladies, you don't realize how important you are in society, how important you are, and how powerful the presence of a woman is. Women are very powerful in society. The Greeks went to war over a woman. God fashioned the perfect woman for his son. We have the justice and things. Always the woman is always the featured Statue of Liberty is a woman. The woman is loved and respected and honored and admired. And a virtuous woman is very inspiring, very uplifting. And so when a woman is dressing cheap and acting cheap and flirting with all the men, then the man will certainly gravitate towards that and take advantage of that. But when a woman is therefore confident and she's humble and she's reserved and she's polite and she's caring and she's all those beautiful virtues that our Blessed Mother would have had, then all of a sudden the man is lifted up. There's something different about this one. And then you see the men start acting differently around her because she has got something special to her. She's not like the rest. She dresses well, she covers herself up, but yet she's dressed elegantly and fashionably and beautifully. But there's something different about her. And so I've got to watch my P's and Q's. I've got to watch what I say. It's like the nuns, When the nuns go out in public, everyone stops cussing and swearing, and all the bad jokes discontinue. I'm sorry. Same thing with the priest. That's why I preached. And a nun should have a exterior attire, also to remind the world of God, to lift them up. But a woman does that. A woman does that, and it's a very beautiful thing. So, ladies, that's your job. That's your job. And it's difficult. You'd rather put on your shorts and your tank top and stroll into the grocery store. It's not going to lift people up. That's maybe for the beach, but not that public. There's so many, and you say, Father, I can't wear that. The dress, the skirt, that's way too hot. Or you tell that to the nuns. Look what they wear. Or even the priest. You see? It's a life we've chosen, but it's a life you want to choose too. A life of modesty. A life of virtue. A life of virtue. Of course, it's more comfortable to, if I can wear shorts and flip-flops and a polo shirt like a lot of priests do. More comfortable. But how many people are we going to lift up and inspire their mind of virtue and of God? Not many. But we'll blend in with the world. We will be swallowed up by them. And we will be just like them. After a while, we will slowly begin to like the gecko, change his color with his surroundings. The man, of course, you don't get out of it this easy. I don't get out of it this easy. It's our duty, therefore, to treat the woman with respect. To treat every woman with respect. And sometimes it's the closest to home. Sometimes it can be our wives or our daughters. And it's the women out in public. When you treat them with respect and honor, you're polite to them. You could open a door for them, things like that. Although sometimes they get offended today because women are just as equal as men, so how dare you? But it's true. I'm sorry. Biologically, men are supposed to fight the wars because they have more muscle and more different things that God gave them. It's not a job you should really want, but anyways. But now with our eyes, okay, it now comes us. What are we doing? Checking out all the San Diego girls? Oh, what am I doing? Right? I'm a man of Christ. I'm a Catholic man. I need to act like one. Or what are we doing on the computer, looking up things that we shouldn't? Well, what am I doing? I'm a Catholic man. I'm supposed to protect women and not exploit them, not put them up on billboards immodestly, and not watch them on a computer and immodestly, get some sort of fix for myself, not to stare at them in an un-Christ-like way. Again, ladies, you don't realize man is attracted to you. Man is attracted to the woman from the very beginning, and that's how God made us. And when we are attracted, and when we turn towards you, what do we see? What do we see? Do we see something that lifts our heads up, or lifts our eyes down? You see? And when you go out in public, you don't realize, just like the priest and the nun doesn't realize sometimes what thoughts go through people's heads, how they might be inspired. Wow, look at that, a real nun in full habit. Think of that priest. You know, when I went to Ireland, the people would stop me and say, you're not a priest. And then when you girls cover up out in public and you act like ladies, and you're not, partying and dancing badly and drinking too much, and your mouth is not vulgar, and you're not walking around with nothing, men are inspired by you, too. Men are inspired by you. And that's a great thing. Think of how many people you can inspire when you walk down the sidewalk in a congested area, downtown. It's kind of interesting for the religious to do that as well. See or the airport. See how the heads going, what? And it's tough. It's tough. It does take some serious courage to do that, especially for the teenagers, especially for the young, because we don't like to stick out. We don't like to stick out. In fact, even for the religious, it's sometimes difficult to stick out all the time, to always be stared at, to always have people come up with questions, sometimes you just say, I just want to disappear. Just to be hidden. I'll just put my, hidden suit on and just walk through the crowd. No one can see me. It's difficult because we have peer pressure, and we wonder, what are people going to think of me if I wear this skirt to college? Or if I wear this dress to work? What are men going to think of me when I tell them, hey, guys, I don't joke like that. I don't talk like that. Hey, look at this video, look at this picture of this girl that I saw. No thanks. What? Dude, come on. You're always such a, you don't want to hang out with the guys and do the things we do. Peer pressure. Strong. And women, you got to be confident in yourselves, because women like attention. Men like attention, but women really like attention. And so, if you can draw attention to yourself, in some way, then that's a good thing. That's why so take so many pictures of yourself, then on the selfies and all this and that. It's about your appearance. And so it takes some courage. It takes some courage to be confident in your feminine, ladylike attitude, demeanor, clothes. The thing is, we're at this Mass, and this is a traditional Latin Mass. And there's a sense of the sacred here. There's no talking, there's no joking, there's no goofing around. And people come and then you kneel down and you adore God, and when the host is when Jesus is made present, the host is consecrated, you kneel down and you adore God, you have faith. And this is all in Latin. You don't understand Latin, but you're there and there's a sense of the sacred and of the old and of the noble and the good. Well, that same spirit desiring those older, sacred, noble ways that were for years and years and years. That's what we try to implement outside, of course, as well. It would be kind of crazy just to say, well, I like the old Latin Mass because I like Latin. And then everything else is just, yeah, I like the world too. Well, that same spirit of Jesus Christ, that same noble, those traditional values have to also be seen in everything. So, my dear friends, let us think about those things at least and try to put them more into practice. Our speech and our actions and our thoughts. This is our ideal. Women, you have Our Lady, she's your model. She's a supermodel. And the Superman is Jesus Christ. And ladies, you imitate her virtues, the beautiful patience, generosity, charity, humility. Those are all part of Our Lady's soul that are very being. Not impurity, not vanity, not self-love. And then it's the same thing. It's spirit of sacrifice, spirit of generosity, spirit of chivalry and manliness and temperance and fortitude, and not lust and pride and sloth. This is what we're after. So let us think about those things. Let us try to imitate Jesus Christ. As my driver and I were discussing down here, he said, it's hard. It's way up here. It's a hard role to follow. And we agreed. To really be Christ-like. To really be like our Blessed Virgin Mary. We're down here, and they're up here. It's a tough coach to get you up here. But with God's grace, He can do all things in our soul. Ask Him to work in your soul. Ask Him to give you a greater desire, if the desire is not strong. And then we'll be saints in heaven someday, and we'll truly be happy.